Thank you very much, Craig, for being here. I'm Robert Hardware. I'm an External Affairs Manager at the National Housing Federation. Thank you very much for chairing the Audit and Risk Conference that is taking place in the East Side Rooms in Birmingham on the 11th and 12th of November this year.
No problem, Rob. I'm really delighted to be chairing the conference for the second year. And I think it's a really important event in our calendar, and I'm really looking forward to the rich discussions I know we're going to have.
So looking across this year's agenda, what do you see as the biggest risks and pressures facing audit and risk professionals in housing right now?
So, Rob, I think there's some perennial topics that we're always going to be talking about. We're always going to be talking about safety in the sector. We're always going to be talking about the satisfaction of our customers. And we're always going to be talking about things like cyber. You know, those are perennial things that we need to have in our minds. But look at the rapid rise of AI. So if we're talking about kind of individual risks, that is that it's a risk in itself, but it's also got so many kind of implications upstream and downstream that we need to be thinking about. But I think it's less about individual risks these days. It's much more about the speed at which risks approach us, and the confluence of those risks, the interconnectedness of those risks, and our ability as a group of people, a group of specialists within our organizations, to be able to manage that, help our organizations see the wood for the trees and understand what's really critical to focus on.
That leads us very nicely onto this year's agenda, covering everything from cyber resilience and AI to fraud, fire safety, and community tensions. How can audit and risk committees avoid becoming overwhelmed and stay focused on what matters most?
Yeah, if you think about the sheer number of risks that are out there and that pace of change, that speed at which things are approaching us, it's not reasonable to expect audit and risk committees to be over the detail of every single kind of individual risk that the organization's got. That's not what the ARC's there for. But I think the ARC's got to make sure that it is kind of stepping back and saying, is this organization equipped to handle the unstable environment? And the unstable environment is the new norm, right? We're not going back to kind of the end of the Cold War stability period that we had, right? The environment we operate in is characterized by being unstable and uncertain and challenging. So the ARC's really got to be saying, is this organization resilient? Is it capable of delivering on its promises when under stress, when things are challenging, when things aren't going well, when things go wrong? And is it structured to identify those fast-moving risks? If we take one example, and the tariffs of the US administration, if we were running things on a kind of annual cycle, as we've kind of done in the past, you would have missed two major events during the course of a year where the landscape dramatically changed, and you would have missed it and ended up in a new normal at the end of the year. So I think the ARC has got to be saying, is the organization resilient, and is it equipped to cope with the pace at which risks are approaching us now?
Yeah. And a strong thread running through the conference is the need to connect assurance with the operational reality, which you've touched on a little bit there. That operational reality from frontline services to resident engagement. Why is that shift so important now?
I think if you look at the sheer volume of things that our organizations are having to deal with, our organizations are under huge strain. The rising expectations of our customers, the growing expectations of regulators, the legal and regulatory environment, the cost of remediating, fire remediation of properties, net zero as a challenge, the rising costs of labour and materials in general. It's a huge number of things that our organisations have to deal with. So we've got to make sure that we as professionals are fitting into the flow and not creating friction. If they see us as distracting them from the core of what they're trying to do, the core activities they need to do while under this huge workload and financial pressure, then we're going to be an irritant, we're going to be in the way. We've got to make sure that we are providing assurance to the things that are most important to the organization. We're not creating friction, that we are really helping to drive the organization's achievement of its goals. What's important to the organization? That's where we need to be providing assurance over the controls that mitigate the key risks to achieving what the organization is fundamentally trying to deliver.
If delegates leave Audit and Risk Conference 2026 having taken away one practical insight or challenge for their own organisation, what do you hope it will be?
Rob, I'm going to be a bit cheeky and say two things, if that's all right. So I think it's about how we operate as risk and assurance specialists. Yeah, we've got people in this room who have been in the sector for a long time and seen it changed dramatically, and we've got lots of new people, we've got lots of young people coming into the sector. I think we're in a transition state right now because of the pace at which risk is approaching us. The traditional approaches no longer equip our organizations with what they need from us. So if we're risk traditionalists, we've got to be thinking about how we change that model. We've got to be moving to be risk strategists, assurance strategists. We've got to be underpinning, as I said, the kind of most critical things for the organization. What's the organization trying to achieve? What are the key risks to achieving that? How do we provide assurance that those risks are being mitigated so that the organization can achieve what it wants to? But also picking up on that point about the younger generation coming through, juniors coming through, we're seeing AI having a dramatic impact there as well. And we see it having an impact on those kind of entry-level roles, the roles where we all cut our teeth and learned how to provide assurance, learned how to think about risk and connect it. And we're seeing AI kind of taking on a lot of that kind of grunt work. So I think a big challenge for us as well is how do we fundamentally change what those roles look like in our organizations? We are going to have the next generation of the human in the loop, the people who can understand what AI is producing and critically evaluate it. So we are going to have to really think about how we bring those people through and give them those skills to operate at that level without coming through and doing the work that traditionally they would have done, but that AI is now doing.
And how would you describe the Audit and Risk Conference in a sentence to someone who's never been before, and why should they come?
Rob, I think it's 2 days of deeply insightful and thought-provoking material. But more importantly, it's about connecting with your peers across the sector, that rich sharing of ideas, the discussions around these topics. We don't get the time day in, day out to do that in our day jobs. We are too busy dealing with the next thing, the next reporting cycle, et cetera, et cetera. That opportunity to kind of listen to this thought-provoking material, have great discussions with your peers in the sector is what really enriches our ability as a sector, as a group of professionals in the sector to work together to create a rising tide that lifts all boats, if you like.
Yeah, thank you very much, Craig. Very much looking forward to the Audit and Risk Conference coming up soon. I hope people will attend. We'll be there on the 11th of 12th of November at the Eastside Rooms in Birmingham. Thank you very much.
Can't wait. Really looking forward to it, Rob. Thank you very much.